Hey everyone, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today for this explainer. We are taking a deep, really detailed journey into something I like to call the wealth continuum. We're going to break down the entire life cycle of personal finance, and we're going to do it using real, unfiltered math. From the daily habits that build your foundation right up to the complex retirement strategies that protect your nest egg, we're looking at the whole shebang.
So, I want to toss this question out to you right off the bat. What does it actually take to become wealthy? Like, really wealthy? Is it a massive salary, winning the lottery, getting super lucky on some random stock pick? Actually, no, it's none of those things. In this explainer, we're going to completely dismantle the most common financial myths out there. We're going to expose the invisible costs that are quietly keeping most people from achieving true wealth, and we'll replace all that noise and confusion with practical, mathematical clarity.
Here is our blueprint for today. 1. Mindset and money habits. 2. The hidden cost of stuff. 3. The $20,000 tipping point. 4. Real estate versus stocks. 5. The index fund snowball. And finally, 6. Timing your Social Security. Let's jump right in.
Okay, part 1. Mindset and money habits. A lot of people think the secret to wealth is just, making more money and then saving whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. But mathematically and honestly, psychologically, that is a fundamentally flawed approach. Have you ever heard of Parkinson's law? Basically, just like work magically expands to fill the time you give it, your spending will naturally expand to consume every single dollar of your paycheck. It doesn't matter if you make $100 or $100,000, if you don't actively manage it, your lifestyle will just inflate to eat the difference. To build wealth, you absolutely must break this law. You do that by paying yourself first. You invest the money before you ever even see it hit your checking account.
Moving right along to part 2, the hidden cost of stuff.
We've talked about saving, but what are we actually spending our money on? Let me tell you a tale of two choices. Picture a high earner making $95,000 a year. Their apartment is just bursting at the seams. A giant TV, a $4,000 sectional, unused kitchen gadgets, a closet full of expensive clothes. Despite that great income, they are terrified, literally 2 paychecks away from a total financial crisis. Now contrast that with a moderate earner making $52,000. They live minimalistically, only keeping what actually adds value to their life, and they have 18 months of living expenses saved up in cash. Why the massive difference? Because everything you own costs you twice, the purchase price and the maintenance. Think about it. A treadmill takes up roughly 20 square feet. If you're paying $40 a square foot in city rent, you are paying $800 a year in implicit rent just to store a machine you probably use to hang your laundry on. Eliminate those invisible costs, and you buy yourself financial security.
Which brings us to part 3, the $20,000 tipping point.
Once you ditch those invisible costs and really start saving, you begin climbing what feels like an incredibly steep hill. But eventually, you reach the top, $20,000. Getting your first $20,000 invested is without a doubt the hardest part. You're grinding, and it feels like you're making almost no progress. But hitting that 20K mark isn't just a math victory, it fundamentally rewires your brain. See, when you have zero savings, you are operating in pure survival mode. You obsess over whether to buy a $3 coffee or generic cereal because every single dollar feels like life or death. But when you cross 20 grand, your brain shifts out of survival mode and into opportunity mode. You stop sweating the micro decisions and start focusing on the macro decisions that actually move the needle. So the really crucial point here is how this new mindset completely transforms your view of opportunity cost. Once you have that $20,000 foundation, you don't look at something like buying a car the same way ever again. The average person spends somewhere between $600 and $800 a month on transportation. And the moment a brand new car drives off the lot, it loses 20% of its value. You are actively destroying wealth. But with an opportunity mindset, you realize that a $30,000 car isn't just a $30,000 purchase. No, it is $30,000 that could have compounded and grown to over $200,000 in your investment account over 2 decades. Suddenly, driving a reliable used car isn't some huge sacrifice. It's a strategic choice to fund your future freedom.
All right, part 4. Real estate versus stocks.
So you've got this wealth-building mindset, but where do you actually park that hard-earned money to make it grow? Let's look at 2 investors, both with $50,000. Meet Jake. Jake puts 20% down on a $250,000 rental property. On paper, he cash flows $470 a month and feels like an absolute genius. But the flashy internet headlines don't show the 10 p.m. emergency plumbing calls or the wildly expensive tenant vacancies. Now meet Marcus. Marcus takes his $50,000 and drops it into index funds, 0 hours of maintenance, total liquidity. But Marcus lacks leverage, and his immediate yield is a whole lot lower than Jake's. The truth, there is no universal winner here. Both sides usually hide their respective flaws.
But we do have to acknowledge this specific number, 5 to 1. This is the single most powerful advantage real estate has over stocks. Marcus used his 50 grand to buy exactly $50,000 worth of stock. Jake, on the other hand, used his 50 grand to control a $250,000 asset. That is 5 to 1 leverage. If that property appreciates just 3 to 4% a year, Jake's equity grows massively. Why? Because he's capturing appreciation on the bank's money, not just his own. It's a massive wealth accelerator. To wrap up this age-old debate, the real math requires counting the invisible costs. The real estate guru will tell you cash flow is king, and the index fund purist will tell you compounding is everything. Honestly, neither of them is lying, but both of them leave out the bad parts. If you are going to choose a path, you have to run the holistic numbers for your own actual life. You have to include your time, your personal stress tolerance, vacancy rates, and maintenance. Don't base your wealth strategy on a YouTube thumbnail, right? Base it on honest, complete math.
Now for part 5, the index fund snowball.
For those of you who prefer the totally hands-off approach, like Marcus, let's look at how tiny, consistent habits create a massive avalanche of wealth. Simple diversification is incredibly powerful. Instead of trying to pick that one winning tech stock, you just buy broad exposure. Just look at the sample portfolio. By blending the total U.S. market, mid-sized companies, sustainable tech, and reliable dividend growers, you capture the whole market with incredibly low fees. You don't have to stress about predicting the next market crash. You just consistently buy everything.
Let's see how this actually plays out if you invest just $35 a week. That's $5 a day, literally $1 into each of those 5 funds. It feels almost too small to matter, right? But consistency beats size every single time. In year 1, you've put in about $18-25. The snowball is barely forming, but stick with it. By year 10, your balance is $32,000. By year 20, you've hit this explosive exponential curve, cresting $160,000 and generating thousands in dividends. And by year 30, that little $35 a week habit has grown into a staggering $942,000 total balance, paying you roughly $8 grand a month in dividends on.
And here is the absolute magic of that timeline. Of that $942,000 final balance, only about $54,000 actually came out of your pocket. That means nearly $890,000 was created entirely by compounding and reinvested dividends. Mind-blowing, right? Your wealth didn't come from your backbreaking labor or your paycheck. It came from your portfolio working for you 24/7.
And finally, part 6, timing your Social Security.
So you've hit your tipping point, you've let your investment snowball, and now we arrive at the end game of the wealth continuum. And honestly, it's a place where the government basically sets a trap for retirees. To understand this, I want you to think of Social Security like a pressurized faucet. Every single year you wait to turn it on, the pressure builds. If you wait until age 70, you get maximum pressure, a much higher monthly payment. But here is the critical detail. The faucet is yours. You paid for it with every paycheck of your working life. If you wait too long before turning it on, some of that water just stays in the pipe. It evaporates. Nobody refunds your family for the pressure you never used. That is exactly why the standard, cookie-cutter financial advice of always delay until age 70 is mathematically flawed. It completely ignores the reality of human lifespan.
Let's break down the break-even math for an upper middle-class earner. At age 62, they can get $2,238 a month. At 67, it jumps to $3,198. And at 70, it maxes out at $3,966. Now, if we assume an average life expectancy for a 62-year-old, which is actually age 84, and we calculate the total lifetime payout without inflation adjustments, guess what? Filing early at 62 actually wins. You'd collect $615,000 total, beating the age 67 strategy by $72,000. But wait, if we factor in cost of living adjustments, or COLA, the math flips entirely. Because COLA compounds on a larger base amount, waiting until age 70 ends up winning by nearly $250,000 over a long lifespan. The crucial, crazy point here is that changing your life expectancy assumption by just 3 years completely flips the optimal strategy.
Because nobody has a crystal ball for their exact lifespan, there are actually several mathematically defensible reasons to open that faucet early at 62. Let's fire through them. 1. Poor family health history. 2. You just want to enjoy your retirement while you're young and active. 3. Unlocking spousal benefits. 4. Triggering survivor benefits if a higher-earning spouse has a terminal diagnosis. 5. Creating a cash buffer so you don't have to sell stocks during a market crash. 6. Managing your tax brackets before required minimum distributions kick in at 73. And 7. The most human reason of all, life simply happens, and you just need the money.
This nuance is exactly why the Social Security Administration actually removed their own break-even calculator from their website. People were using basic, rigid math to solve a deeply human, unpredictable equation. Personal finance is just that. It's personal. Your life expectancy, your spouse's earning history, the current state of your portfolio, and even macroeconomic stock market crashes all have a seat at this table. You just cannot replace holistic planning with some generic internet rule of thumb.
And that, my friends, brings our continuum full circle. Whether we are talking about your daily spending habits, where you park your first $20,000, or exactly when you turn on your government benefits, the core principle remains exactly the same. Wealth is not just about making a bigger salary. True wealth is the systematic elimination of invisible costs, like lifestyle inflation, the storage of junk you don't need, and crazy property maintenance. And it's the intentional management of opportunity through compound growth and smart timing.
We have covered a massive amount of ground in this explainer today. You have seen the real, unfiltered math from the very beginning of your financial life to the very end. So I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry with you as we wrap up. You've seen the real math. Which invisible cost are you going to eliminate from your life first? Are you finally going to ditch that storage unit? Stop sweating the $3 coffees? Or maybe look past those flashy real estate headlines? The choice is literally yours, and your future self is waiting. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and keep optimizing.
Thanks for watching. If this gave you a new way to think about your wealth, subscribe to Langford Invests. Leave a comment below with the one savings move you're making this year, and I'll see you in the next one.